Anyway, without further ado, we're going to bring on our first guest. We have a very um, good lineup tonight. We have the first three guests have never been on the show, and so we are excited about having them. And first tonight is Philip B. Williams, and he's an award-winning author and poet from the information that I have. And also, I wanted to let him know, and if you can unmute, so as soon as you start talking, we can hear you. We became aware of you and Joseph Earl Thomas through one of our viewers. They had a flyer that both of you all have an event. Did y'all already have it, or is it this week?
We already had it at the
Okay.
Athenaeum. Yeah.
Okay. So they told us about it, and then I said, okay, we'll reach out to them. And then you both ended up on the same night, which that was really coincidental. So welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Well,
You
thank you for being here.
Now, do you teach at Randolph College?
I do.
Now,
I
where is
do.
that? Where is Randolph College?
So Randolph College is in Lynchburg, Virginia. So it's a low residency program. And, they come for uh, 10 days in the summer, 10 days in the winter. And then we teach most of them graduate students online. So, yeah, we just wrapped up the winter term.
Oh, okay. I'm from Virginia,
Well,
but Lynchburg is the west part, correct? In the western part of Virginia, I think
Yes.
Lynchburg is. Yeah, I'm from the eastern part. I'm from Newport News, so I'm on
I'm gonna guess that you teach fine arts.
Yeah, I'm teaching poetry there.
Nice, nice.
okay.
Love it.
Yeah. Now, when you teach poetry, are the people who in your class are they already do they already consider themselves to be poets and they're trying to improve their craft, or are they new to it altogether and trying to figure out how to go forward, or a combination?
I think it's a combination. Everyone who applies to the graduate level, they in some part believe that they're poets and they already have, some kind of skill level that they're pretty, proficient in knowing different forms and things, but the confidence is not always there. And so we help to build that up too. If you had confidence enough to try to get into a graduate program, you should be confident enough to call yourself a poet. So we're
There
always
you
working
go.
through that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's because there are so many different types of poetry, and maybe like for instance, they hear a lot of spoken word, so they think that they have to be like the spoken word poet. But there are a lot of poets who were not spoken word. They wrote their poetry, and that didn't make them any less poets.
Mhm.
So do you think that might be a piece of it where maybe they don't think that they're on the level of somebody who they may see a lot, like a spoken word
Mhm.
artist, or even on the other realm, maybe a written poet.
I think it's both. I think, for folks who start off in one avenue, say they start off in the written and they want to be better readers or performers of their work, they have that to try to figure out. And then there are those who start off in spoken word or slam and they want to get better on the page. Then they have to figure out, how to build their confidence in that. So everyone is aspiring to be something that is in their imagination bigger than who they are. And what we like to teach is
Mhm.
what you have is suitable enough. You just have to hone it.
It's a good way to put it. I love
Yeah.
that.
So when people go to poetry classes, they take poetry at the graduate level. What are they planning to do with it career wise?
Who knows?
Oh,
Because there are people who go and they get an MFA, you never see them again in the publishing realm. They'll do healthcare, they'll do advertising, they'll become high school teachers, and they never will publish a book. For some, it's
Mhm.
just an experience, or for some, doing it was all they needed to see that, okay, I can write poems. Now let me go and do, the other dreams that I have. A lot of folks go into teaching in undergrad or graduate school in English programs or creative writing programs. And then some people go and get PhDs in literature or history and things like that. So it's pretty flexible what folks typically do, but a lot of people they want to become professional writers, and it's relatively challenging to do that. It can be
Mhm.
competitive, like with anything, and there are limited spaces for those who want to be professors in creative writing. So yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I interviewed a young lady who was going through an MFA program, and I was telling her that I have 3 degrees already, but I was actually thinking about going back to get an MFA because I wanted to just have some concentrated study on improving my craft.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows me when it comes to writing is my baby. I mean, book promotion is wonderful, but I really I really concentrate on the written word. So I was thinking about going back and getting yet another freaking degree because I wanted to just strengthen my writing. Do you see some people who are doing that? They don't really need a degree, so to speak, but they're just going back. Maybe they just want to study writing or in your case study poetry or just or studying acting or whatever that
Mhm,
passion
mhm.
is.
Yeah, we have people who already have books. They already have built a trajectory in writing poems and they're known. They just don't
Mhm.
have the degree. And a lot of those people, they want to teach eventually. And because they already have the books, but they don't have the master's degree, which for writers, the terminal degree is the MFA, then they're not
Right.
allowed to teach at the university level. So they know they can write, but they need the paper to tell everybody else that they can write. Um, and we have folks
Mention.
who come in, they're straight out of undergrad. Some people come in, they are um, retired or near retired, and they're just following that push to become the writer that they always thought that they could be. And sometimes it's just to prove that they can do something for themselves. It's not even to get published, just to say, okay, I did this.
Hmm. So you are a poet. You are a poet.
Yes.
So when did you start writing poetry? And um, do you have a degree in that, or is it MFA, or so? When did you get started with the poetry, and then how did you progress
I
with
was a
it?
little thing. I started writing when I was in first grade. And we had a teacher, her name is Mrs. Bellamy. This is in Chicago, and she had us keep journals. We were what, 6, 7? I don't 6. We were 6 years old, and she had us keep journals. And we couldn't spell nothing, but we were writing in there, and that's how we learned how to spell. That's how we learned how to write. And she would check them, and just to make sure that we were doing them daily. And so I was always writing either a little story here or something that was a poem, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I was doing. And what helped me to continue doing it was there was no one who told me to stop doing it. So I was
Mm,
constantly encouraged to do it by my teachers. My mother, in particular, she had me on hooked on phonics very early. So it was always a language life that I was living. And when I got into high school or middle school, everyone was like, "Oh, you can really write." So that encouragement helped me to know that I was doing something that I should keep pursuing. Had people, showed doubt early on, I wouldn't be doing this. We have to feed into people's dreams so that they can know that they're worth living. And luckily, I had people feeding into, what I really enjoyed doing. So yeah, I was very young when I started writing, and very young actually when I knew that I wanted to do it for a living.
I think that's wonderful. I kind of went on a little tangent last night. I was talking with a fellow author. We were talking about pouring into our kids. Often our kids will express an interest in something. One of the reasons why I do an eighth and ninth grade essay contest is to pour into kids while they're still fairly young.
Yeah.
Because I think that we have come into an age where we're telling people they shouldn't go to college unless they're going for some type of professional degree, like a lawyer or a doctor or something like that. And we're telling people they shouldn't go to college or college is a waste of money. Anybody can write. You don't have to go to college to learn to write. You can just write a
Mhm.
good story. Or why do you want to be an actor? My daughter grew up wanting to be an actress. And even though she's not acting today, acting is what propelled her to continue working to get into college. So it was her
Yeah.
vehicle to get into college. And she graduated cum laude from Clark Atlanta University
Maybe.
with a theater degree. However, she's not working in that field right now, but she still has that talent. She still
Mhm.
has that drive. And if she wanted to teach acting, she could do it because she's actually a very gifted actress. But I think that I don't know if it's we as a community, we feel that um the creatives are kind of a waste of money. We don't have to go to college for that. We should
Mhm.
only be sending our kids to college if they want to be a lawyer or a doctor or something like that. But
Right.
other than that, it's a waste of money. And I think sometimes we wind up trying to talk them out of doing that. But I'm on that other side where I feel like we need to pour into that. That could be that vehicle that makes them want to do bigger and better things.
Absolutely. And those lead to other opportunities a lot of the time. So for me in particular, I started off in undergrad thinking I was going to be a business major. And I got into the school in undergrad. It was supposed to be like this difficult thing to do. And so I felt strange leaving it, but I told my mom, I was like, I am miserable doing this. It's just
Mhm.
numbers and graphs and there was no heart in it. So it was a lot of information. And I thought that, oh, I would do a business degree and then I'll write on the side. But I was taking more English classes than I was taking business classes and enjoying those English classes more. And it turned out that that skill was useful in a lot of things. It was useful for when I did 2 years of HIV testing and counseling, so it helped me to communicate with the people that I was testing and get the ideas across that I was learning through all of the different trainings. It helped me to um, help with co-writing a grant. It helped me with writing different documents that needed to be written for our meetings or for different. Um, Oh, there were actually several grants, and then I had to write a piece on, what were some of the resources that we need to be better at our job. And so the lack of funding for the arts is really, you know, uh, um, uh, fascism starts with killing the artists. It starts with killing the poets. It starts with killing the arts in our schools. And then once you get rid of that creative impulse, and then it's easier to, really manipulate folks into thinking that they are only useful when they're making other people money.
Right.
you know, but we just lost Nikki Giovanni recently, and there are very few poets in the world who will also create political change and inspire people to really be more communally focused. So once you lose the artist, you lose that griot, that spiritual center. And I can see that happening now. So the investment in the arts is something that we need to reconsider, whether it be, in the US or just in our community. We need to reconsider the seriousness of, the presence of the artist in our communities.
Mm,
Amen.
I agree. Now, something that you said, I'm going to differ with you about business school. It was just, I was a business major and an entrepreneur at heart. There is heart in business, but it's like writing and poetry. You kind of already need to have a heart for it.
Hmm.
If you already have a heart for it, then you see the heart in it. But if it's just, you know, numbers and graphs to you, then you won't see the heart in it. But it's like anything else. I thought when I first went to school, I thought I went for nursing,
Hmm.
even though science was my weakest subject. And what killed it for me was the first time I went into the hospital in my sophomore year, the first semester sophomore year, and I had to actually touch a stranger.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
And
wow. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you're a nurse, you have to touch people you don't know, like all over. I,
yeah.
I that I only did it once. Then that was when I started this thing.
And that was that.
And I
That's
I
it.
agree with you about the heart. I think for me, the professors, they didn't have any heart in doing it. If I had a
Well,
really
it
passionate
makes
professor, it would have helped.
the professors do make a difference, and
Yeah.
the teachers when you're growing up, like you mentioned, I think you said Miss Bellamy. You know those
Mhm.
teachers that really just grab you early on, and then you never forget them. You know,
Never.
because they really really change your life. Um, and you may have been fine otherwise, but they push you. Those really good teachers really get the best out of you. And
Right, right. Because they see the best in you. They
yeah,
see things that we don't really necessarily see and live in our own lives. So, yeah.
right. For me, my first one was Miss Edwards. So, uh, and
Mhm.
she was my teacher in fourth, fifth, and seventh grade.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she moved. She moved every year I moved. So she moved from fourth to fifth, and then she moved from fifth to seventh. So she was waiting for me when I got to seventh grade. But she was the best. She was tough as nails, but
Hmm.
she was an exceptional teacher. So you have a novel called Hours.
I do. I have it sitting
Oh,
right
you have a
next to me
copy?
too.
Okay,
Yay.
okay, yay. So we'd
Hmm.
like to take a look at it.
Oh,
It's
it's a
really,
thick one.
Hmm.
turn it sideways.
Yeah, here.
Oh
That
my
is. That's
goodness.
like
That's a
at least
textbook.
400, at least 400 pages. So it's a novel. It's not a memoir.
No.
It's a novel because it's historical too. It,
Yes,
it's set
yes.
in the 1800s, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. I went in there and looked at it. So tell us
Mhm.
about the novel. Tell us about the plot just generally and the impetus behind writing it.
Nice. So I wrote the novel Ours because my mom was telling me these stories about our family. And one of the stories she told me was about her father and how there was a woman who came to the house to look for his sister. She just wanted to hang out. But what my grandfather would do was salt his thresholds. And so there'd be sea salt on the windowsill, sea salt in the doorway. He was also a pastor. And so he invited the woman to come in to wait for his sister, and she moved like she was going to cross into the doorway. And then she stopped suddenly, and she's like, "Nah, wait." And he kept trying to convince the woman to come in, but she wouldn't do it. And so the idea is that there was something about that woman that the salted threshold protected the household against. Like she wasn't all the way, right. And so those kinds of stories that deal with alternative spiritualities, and really it's not alternative, it's just a different way of thinking about the way that we move through spirit, spirituality and religion, because he was a pastor, Christian, but then he also had these practices that were very much hoodoo based in nature, based in traditions that were passed down to him probably from his father, his mother. And so in ours there's a conjure woman who goes to Arkansas, and she destroys plantations and takes those that she's freed just north of St. Louis to a place that she calls ours. And so she uses her conjure to protect the town and hide the town from those who have no business knowing it exists. But because her memory is in lapse and there's some other things going on as far as how she believes in love and believes in trusting other people, it allows for her conjure to fluctuate and weaken, and then other people with their own values and their own desires come in and interrupt everything that she started. So that's the premise of ours.
Now I noticed the cover doesn't have a female on it, does it? It's
It
got
does. It
men.
does.
Oh, it looked like two men on
Well, some people thought that originally when they saw it, they were like, "Oh, there are two men," but the original artist depicted a woman. She just has really short hair. Uh,
there. Okay, okay. Now, where are you from? Like you talked about your dad being a pastor. Was that your dad or your granddad?
oh, granddad. I'm from Chicago.
Oh, you're from Chicago. You did say that earlier,
Mhm.
but I was referring back to the hoodoo, and where's that from?
Oh,
That
so he was
Chicago.
from Alexandria. New- he was from Alexandria, Louisiana, so just north of
Okay,
New Orleans.
Okay. I'm from
okay. So
Louisiana.
that's
I'm from
why I
New
know they
Orleans
don't
though.
do that in Chicago. Or they might, but they got it from somewhere else. It migrated to Chicago. It's not like indigenous to the Chicago
Yeah, they
area.
probably got it from Mississippi.
So it's more southern. So now I hadn't heard about that, the sea salt. I mean, well, Rhonda's from New Orleans. So have you heard about
Mm-mm.
that, Rhonda? Putting the sea salt in the doorway to,
See, well, you know what? I have heard something about it. I don't know a lot about it, but I think I've heard mention of it before.
yeah, I hadn't heard that one. But now, is that something that he actually did, or is that something that you in your research? about that period in that region you discovered?
That's something that I was told he actually did.
Hmm.
That was a practice that he came up with. But there is in the Caribbean, there's a vampire slash spirit called the Sukuyon, and the way that people would protect from her because she sneak in your house and eat your family, eat your baby in particular. It's terrible. And so they would put salt or they put grains of rice at the around the crib or at the doorway because it was believed that those spirits need to count every individual piece of rice or salt or sugar. And if they couldn't finish before sunrise, then they'd be killed off. And so there's a tradition of it. Um, Not necessarily in the way of not being able to cross. Like there's that too, but I was thinking more so of how, there are all these ways that people protect their houses or protect what we do, which is what's around. Salt is around, sugar's around, rice is around. Um, and so if there's a way that, we believe that what we have is enough or can be made enough, then there might be ways that we can better protect ourselves and not think of it always as superstition or mythical, right? But think about it metaphorically. What do we have and how can we bring it together to make something work for us?
And, that's in a variety of cultures because, and I don't know if this is true of the Scottish people or not, but I watched the show Outlander,
Mhm.
which the one about the woman that passes through time. And there's one season in there where if the baby is born like sickly,
Mhm.
they put it in the woods, and that the whole idea is that it will get taken by some fairies, because it's considered to be uh negative as far as the bloodline.
Right.
You don't want, it's like weakness. You don't want weakness in your family. So they actually were doing it to give them another path rather than be human and then just be weak. It's
Right.
like the run of the litter, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's different cultures, and of course, the whole vampire culture with garlic and all of that. Uh, like you mentioned crosses. So and the sunlight, sunlight does what's it clears everything up, or
Mhm.
that saying about the best way to see the how something is for real is to let sunlight hit it, and then
Mhm.
um so now your book is very, as Rhonda said, it's very thick. So what is it? Is it a long time period, or
Oh yeah.
is it over what's the span of time?
So the span of time it jumps, and so it begins in the early mid 1800s, so like 1830s, and then we go a little bit farther back to um, the 1700s, and then it goes forward in time. So it's going through generations. So there are about three generations in the book, and then toward the end of the book, we'll get an extra generation. And it's the length of it is part of the genre that I'm writing in, which is the epic. And so the tale of how many heroes are there, how do they become heroes, what is everyone's story, and I wanted to write a story that took place during the antebellum period where people weren't getting lynched, they weren't getting whipped. Like these are people who have been freed. And so the majority of the book is them trying to figure out what does freedom mean to them and how do they love one another without having to imagine someone watching them and trying to assault them or terrorize them. So it was really important for me to, write everybody's story out to the fullest so that they can have, that freedom and the imagination that a lot of them weren't allowed to have in our actual history. So it was really important to me to do that.
Now, is this your first novel?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay, but it's not your first book.
No, it's not my first book. It'll be
Mm,
my third, yeah, my third book.
mm.
So, with this being a novel, I know we only have a couple minutes left, but I have to ask, whenever
Yep.
an experienced writer decides to jump into fiction for the first time,
Mhm.
what are some of those differences that you see, or what are some of the things that may have surprised you about this process versus the process that you used before?
Oh man. It took 16 years for me to write the novel.
Wow.
It started as a short story in undergrad, and then I kept rewriting it and retooling it, and so it was just a much longer process to do the novel than it was for the poems. And I also learned that readers are, I mean, someone's going to be intimidated by words, period. That's just how the culture is in the US. Literacy rate here in America is very low. Um, but when it comes to poetry, people are frightened by lines. If something's written in lines, they don't want to deal with it. But they're more excited about seeing something that's in sentences, something that's in the form of a story. And I think it's because we typically see things in paragraphs, right? We have the
Right.
newspaper, our textbooks, things like that. And then with poems, we don't think that we see song lyrics, or even in reading the Bible, like a lot of that is written in a way that is very lyrical, poetic, in lines. And so, yeah, when it came to the novel, it sold better than the poems.
Well, I love historical fiction, so that's one of my favorite genres. One of my two among the two of my favorites. So
Right.
it looks like something that I would be interested in reading, and I like to read it from the that period. Well, I really like all of it. I like Black historical fiction. I
Yeah.
should because that's the only historical fiction I really read by
Mhm.
Black authors about us from it can be 1600s on up, you know. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's some great books written um, this with great characters. So I look forward to reading yours.
Thank you so much. I'd be honored to have your eyes and mind on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is one that I think we can dive into and just experience. We don't have to rush to the end on it. We can just
No.
experience the story.
Yeah, take your time. There's no rush, there's no competition. And there are a lot of magical elements in it too. And so when it gets historical, it's historical. And then there are other ways where it's very mythical. So it has a little something for everybody.
Oh, okay. Well,
Wonderful.
show the cover one more time, real quick, so we can,
I sure will, because it's so pretty. And I opened the flap too. So maybe, oh, you know what? No, they got her face. They cut her face off. So you can't really see it. But yeah.
Okay, that's what made me think it was two young men. So I had already, I thought I had already had written the story in my mind before you said what it was about. Anyway, anyway, Ron and I are both writers too. So, we enjoy the craft. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank
Congratulations on
you.
your book
Yeah.
and continued success with your classes, your poetry classes, and all of that. You teaching the next generation, or sometimes the same one,
The
how to
same one.
how to write poetry.
Thank y'all so much for having me. I was very excited to get the email, the invitation. So yeah, awesome.
Well, thank you for being here and enjoyed the conversation. And we will both be reading the book very soon.
All right, thank you. Have a good
Okay,
night.
Take care.
take care. Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays.